Today's guest is Adam Osborne. He's with HHM CPAs. They're the new company that's coming on Inman Street in the old, Ben Moore's building, and they're renovating it, and it looks really nice. And I'm interested in talking to him about accounting and that sort of thing. For some reason, I've had it in my mind that HHM was an out-of-town company. Are you from out of town, but you live next to Randy Paris? Is that right?
That's right.
You know Randy?
That's right.
He's a really good friend of mine.
Randy Paris, Jay Collins.
I know Jay real well.
You probably know Dennis and Ree Epperson.
Yep.
Yeah, right across the street.
I know Randy probably the best.
Okay.
I ate lunch with him about 5 times a week.
I had lunch with his son the other day, David.
Oh, really, David? Yeah, he's nice too, isn't he?
Great, fantastic. Yeah, so HHM is a Chattanooga based. I know that Cleveland is sometimes political in that.
Yeah.
Chattanooga is Chattanooga and Cleveland is Cleveland.
Yeah.
But we started in Chattanooga in 1982.
Who's we?
So I started with Donnie Hutcherson, our managing partner, and 2 other partners, and now we've grown to 40. Let's see, what are we at? 41 years. I guess is how long we've been in business. 1981, 41 years.
You don't look that old.
I'm not that old. So I started there in 2008. Been with the firm for 14 years. Born and raised in Cleveland. Love Cleveland. And when they spoke to me about opening up an office here, I immediately jumped all over that.
So you got a degree in accounting and went to work in Chattanooga.
That's right. So I graduated from Lee with an accounting degree and got an offer from HHM and been there ever since.
Accountants have supposed to be a sort of a stereotype, bean counters and such. Is that the way it is, or how do you see it?
Our firm is unique. I would say that our firm has more personality than most firms. We know how to have a conversation. We know how to smile. We know how to cut up, have fun. That makes us a little unique. And most firms, you're right, they don't have much of a personality. They're kind of stiff. Maybe a little shy of the camera, and we're just not that way. We like to have a good time.
I've noticed that the accountants I deal with, of course, I've got a real good one now, and I've had real good luck with accountants.
Good.
I found them to always be extremely honest, and somewhat flexible in how you approach.
Sure.
How to maybe list some stuff or something, but as a general rule, they're probably not going to go to the ball game with you. But you say that's different, right?
That is different. That's very different. We frequent ball games. I was in Tallahassee this weekend watching the Florida State Seminoles football game, and we go with clients to Tennessee Vols games. I mean, we try to participate in this. We really believe that our industry is relationship based. And if you don't go and do those things, I sense you'll lose connection with your clients.
You do. People tend to do business with friends.
That's right.
Not necessarily with family, but with friends.
I've learned too that there's got to be a good arm's length approach to it. And I've learned that in Cleveland is that not everybody wants everybody to know who their CPA is.
That's true.
And so I've learned you let them tell their friends who their CPA is. You never be the person to tell who you're working with.
And I'm not sure why that is. It's almost like people are a little secretive. I guess it goes back to people are secretive about their finances.
That's right.
Maybe
I believe so, but our industry calls us to a higher standard. And we never say anything about finances and we never talk about those things. But there's always this belief that there could be something said at a social event, a party, and we've been fortunate enough not for that to happen, which is great.
I'd say most accountants, you couldn't drag somebody else's finances out of. It's just in them.
That's right. And what I've learned is they're numbers. I don't talk numbers. I'll talk about your family. I'll talk about your kids. We don't talk numbers.
Have you found that finances are different with all? I guess you see everybody's, all your clients' finances, and that's probably a little bit hard to decipher. Or
Sure.
does that make sense? Like this guy's
Yeah.
working with $10,000 and this guy's working with $500,000.
Right.
It's almost like
and probably with you, with building and house plans, and they all run together. And you don't remember what you looked at the day before. And now there are certain things that'll stay in your mind, like a situation where maybe you had to deliver a tax bill. Well, that number sticks out. It may not be the client that sticks out, but that number sticks out. And you may remember that number for a period of time, but at some point you just lose it. I mean, there's so
it's
many
just a
numbers.
figure.
That's right. So many numbers flowing through your mind that you just forget it. I've got a fellow partner that can remember everybody's phone number. And I don't know how the guy does it. He'll pick up the phone. He doesn't have anything saved in his phone. And he'll dial out. I'm like, I don't know how he does it. I can't even remember my own phone number.
Maybe people, I don't need either anymore. I just remember their name, punch their name. Don't even know their number.
That's right.
Well, that's something that's different, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You just punch their number instead of their their name instead of their phone number.
Right. And now with tax softwares, you do a lot of importing numbers, right? You don't even
necessarily look for them.
Right, because back in the day, you wrote all the numbers down on the form, and I'm sure that those numbers were so much more prevalent in those days. Now you're using softwares that will import them from other softwares and try to reduce how much data entry or human error there could be.
That is true, because you can take an Excel spreadsheet and you can import it into a
That's right.
Quicken, or y'all use QuickBooks and Quicken and Peachtree and all those things?
We don't do a ton of bookkeeping, but when we do, we use QuickBooks mainly. But our software is called Engagement, and it's just an accounting software that keeps up with all our data, but it's Excel based. And I like that.
About all of them are Excel based to an extent.
Most of them have went that way. I guess you can go back to the 90s where Locust, was it Locust? Back in those days?
No, Lotus.
Lotus, you're right. Yeah. You're right, Lotus. And then Excel kind of took over.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of the prevalent.
Excel is really good.
Right.
That's what I use, Excel. I just create my own sheets, put in the formula and total and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I do miss, did you ever use the green ledger books, or was that?
We've still got some clients that use those, surprisingly. Now they're old school clients, very paper based.
So they use the five columnar.
That's right.
I always wonder where they get that name, columnar.
Yeah, it's unique for sure.
But that is a good way to do it. There may be some advantage to writing down what you spent.
Sure.
Rather than using a credit card and ACH, your bank account, and all that stuff. If you write it down, it's like buying something with cash. If you had to hand the utility bill $280 every month, you'd turn a light off rather than just writing a check.
My wife makes fun of me because I still use a checkbook register. I write everything down.
I do. If I charge something to a credit card, I bring the receipt back and I write a check from the credit card to American Express or to Visa, because I like everything goes through the checkbook like an hourglass.
Sure. You and I think a lot alike.
Are you a Scorpio?
I have no clue.
What's your birthday?
August.
August
10th.
August is what is August, Gwen? That's a Taurus, isn't it?
I have no clue.
I think that's a Taurus. They tend to manage their own business very well.
Okay.
Like most of your convenience store operators are Tauruses.
Okay.
Because they manage their own thing. But the problem with the ledgers, another thing I do is I run a copy of everything and put it in the file. Do you have me? I got audited back in 2012, and it was a nightmare.
Sure.
7 weeks, and I got a $3,393 refund at the end.
Wow.
So That was good.
7 weeks seems short nowadays.
It was 7 weeks from the time I got the letter to the
Wow.
time and when she left, she said, "Mr. Burris keeps very good books." So I was glad.
That's great.
It was, but they looked through everything.
Wow. And that was IRS?
IRS,
Wow.
revenue agents.
Yeah.
So it was intense.
There's such a shortage now. It feels like the IRS audits take forever, months.
Well, and they'll come and then they'll be here in the afternoon and then leave, and it was.
Sure.
My accountant had she would stay in the room, and he offered her a Coke and a pack of crackers one day, and she wouldn't even. They're really professional, aren't they?
That's right.
But she was really good. She was.
It's like taking a bribe from the enemy.
I guess so.
That's the way she looks at it.
But they were very thorough, very thorough.
Well, you talked about that a little bit, like keeping good records.
Mm-hmm.
We see that a lot, where everybody just wants to shred everything after the end of the year, and it's like, well, hang on, keep it for 7 years. Just hold it in a box for 7 years.
And I'm not so sure if even 7 years is, because if they suspect fraud, they can go back to eternity,
or they can prove that your tax liability was more than 25% understated. But 7 years is a good rule of thumb. The more people move electronic, they're getting rid of their file cabinets and everything just doesn't get to the electronic format that it needs to be in. So everybody loses records and data, and that's the worst feeling if the IRS comes knocking.
Boy, it is. I know that firsthand. But the oldest form of accounting, I was looking that up before you came in, it's like 7,000 years old, the first form of accounting.
That's amazing.
I guess it's an accounting, if you go to the basic word, it's an accounting of numbers.
Okay.
So it's just, income, expenses.
Sure.
But they have now evolved that into what do they call that? General accounting practices?
Yeah, you're talking about GAAP, general accounting principles. But that really is what kind of governs what we do day in and day out.
So do you strictly pretty much go by that?
Well, you got tax standards. You got FASB, which is the governing body that governs financial statements, audited, compiled, reviewed financial statements. So we tend to use the IRS standards, and we use FASB standards to kind of guide what we do.
So the GAAP is a different standard.
Well, I think that's really just more the basics. That's just kind of what your learning base is when it comes to accounting.
So the FAFSA is like an overlay?
That's right. So FASB is kind of like over your more of your financial reporting for audits or reviews or compilations.
I always got what they call that form, the balance sheet and profit and loss. By the time you get a profit and loss statement, you've already done what you were doing wrong for 3 months, right?
Well, I think that's why you got to be timely on everything. I mean, we try to challenge our clients to close your books after 10 days. If you can close your books 10 days or earlier, you're getting those reports, you're getting that data as quick as possible so you can make management decisions. I mean, that's the goal.
When you say, what do you mean by closing then?
So making sure that every transaction is recorded, every account's reconciled, every AR invoice is posted, every AP invoice is posted, any type of accruals for maybe things you've purchased and haven't received it yet, those accruals were posted. I mean, you're trying to get everything on your books as quickly as possible after year end. And then you close them, in essence, saying, I'm not posting anything back into that period. And so if you do that 10 days or earlier after month end, you're in a good spot to kind of look at what I'm going to say is current data.
Now, every day that I come in, I write every check that comes in the mail, I post it to the job, and I file it. There's not but 5 or 10 a day, but that's easier than doing 35 at the end of the week.
Right.
Plus, people want to get paid,
right,
and you want to pay them quick. Do you think that that the electronic stuff, being able to import, has made businesses more effective or less effective?
I think it makes them more effective. You talk about writing checks, right? Most people now can, if you wanted to pay all your contractors through Venmo, you can pay your contractors through Venmo now.
What's that?
Venmo is just an app. You just push the payment over there and it pulls right out of your bank account. And so some clients are starting to use those measures just from a time saving standpoint. I think it makes them more efficient. Now, where things go wrong is if they're not maintaining that record.
Because you'd have to export or import that, and
right. I work with a client in Atlanta that does that a lot, and getting the detail or it's a little more difficult. It is a little more difficult.
Seems like there would be actually a little more room for error.
Sure.
Like what if you got to void a check?
Because
how you do that?
That's right. Because we're all human, right? We forget to do X, Y, Z of our process. You have a great process, right? You've determined your process and how it should work, and it's worked for 20, 30, 40 years. And as long as you keep doing that, you feel comfortable. But your process might not work for John Doe down the road, and he prefers an electronic process. And I think it just comes down to, what's your personal specification that works for your business.
And the way you've been doing it may be more efficient than a more efficient way.
Right.
Because you're used to it. But
you're doing a lot of things yourself, and you're the owner of the business. You do these things. There's a sense of comfortability. But let's say you had a controller that had access to all the bank accounts. If they're able to transfer money electronically and pay through Venmo, to me, that increased the fraud risk, right? You think about the potential for fraud. You've got a great control in your business, so you're doing a lot of these transactions, and it reduces your fraud risk. But anytime you have multiple hands kind of in the pot, you got to think about the fraud risk of things.
Boy, it's all complicated.
It is.
HHM CPAs for nearly 40 years has been operating in Chattanooga, and now with their local resident Adam Osborne are coming to Cleveland at the old Moore Building on Inman Street. Give them a try. They're no problem. What's your main focus in accounting?
So I focus more on it's hard to say, Dee. I mean, I do so many different things.
Is it more the clients you have or a type of work?
I was raised kind of doing, in the business I grew up doing, like the accounting, the auditing side of things, financial statement formats, understanding what financial statements are saying to the business owner, right? I learned that early on. I've moved more into taxation and consulting because I'll meet with you and we can talk about your financial statements, but the only thing you care about is how much you're going to pay the IRS. Mm-hmm. And I have learned, Donnie Hutcherson, my managing partner, has told me, you got to know the tax inside and out. And I've really dove in the past 3-4 years of understanding the tax ramifications of everything. But I think I bring a big value to my client because I can look at their financial statements and tell them where they have issues as well.
That's right.
Right? So I really take the approach of, I know everything about the two main areas, tax and audit or financial statements. And then I rope that all into like a consulting arm and I focus on the consulting.
There's a lot of money to be made in knowing taxes.
That's right. That's right.
The rules and the loopholes and everything that goes with it.
What we started seeing though is and I love Cleveland and there's some great CPAs here, but there's a transactional approach to a lot of the things they do, right? You come to me one time a year, I prepare your tax return one time a year, and really HHM is different because we want to have that personal relationship throughout the entire year. Something comes up, I want to be the first phone call because I want to be your most trusted advisor. Maybe it's banking or lending. Okay, and you don't know who's got the best rates right now. Typically, we've got a relationship with all the bankers. We know who might be interested in that real estate deal or who might be interested in doing some floor plan lending for a dealership. Like we understand what those banks are wanting to do, so we can kind of help open up those doors for them.
And a bank will look at a financial statement differently
Right.
than a supplier that you're applying
right.
for credit.
That's right.
It's two different ways to look
That's
at
right.
it.
But we have such good relationships with bankers. Our goal is to try to be that person to help them interpret it, right? To help guide them.
Yeah.
Because bankers love to take the financial statement and the tax return and try to match them together, and they never match.
Never match.
Because your taxation is much different than your financial reporting side of things.
Say that part again. You're
Your
right.
tax numbers are different than your financial reporting numbers, because you're talking what we know as book accounting versus tax accounting.
All right. So say you have a financial statement that's the guy makes $1 million, but he's only paying tax on $200,000.
Sure.
You say, well, the guy's cheating. Not necessarily.
No.
He's got depreciation.
Right.
He's got like an individual SEP that he can
Sure.
pay into,
Sure.
reduce his liability. He's got a kid in college. He's paid to the trust fund.
Sure.
You reduce your
Right.
your taxable obligation, and it's almost like the IRS is okay with that. They
Right.
just want to know where you spend it.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah, they're usually, I mean, if you work with a good CPA, they're going to help you open up doors to things that you can do. I mean, we're not in the business of trying to lead people down the wrong path, right? We don't want anybody to go to jail.
No.
But if there's an R&D, research and development tax credit that we can take, we're going to take it, right? That's going to reduce our liability. Or there's a cost segregation. You know about cost segregations.
Oh yeah.
You know, we had a president recently that was building buildings. Well, chances are there was a cost segregation involved with that allowed them to accelerate the deductions on some of those. And in your scenario, could have taken our income from $1 million down to $200,000, or even in a position of loss. And so, from a legality standpoint, it's not wrong.
No,
You're really just kicking that tax burden down the road. You're not paying it right now, but you're exhausting those deductions so that in 5 years you're probably going to be paying more tax.
maybe not.
Maybe not.
The hope is
Right.
that you're not.
It depends on the investments they make 5 years down the road.
Now I have some people I build for, and at the end of the year, around 1st of December, they'll say, "Dee, can you break down our cost?" And I know what they're doing. They're
Sure.
breaking it down by depreciation amount.
Right.
In other words, they're not going to say we spent $1 million on this. They're going to say we spent $600 on this,
Sure.
$800, because we can accelerate the depreciation of these. And so I sort it best I can and send it to them in that form, and I know that they're thinking.
Yeah, you really did. You helped them do a cost segregation.
The cost, and who
That's
better
right.
to do it but me?
That's right.
You know,
It should always be
I
the
can say
contractor.
what it's related to, and it takes me 10 minutes because I
Right.
use Excel.
Right.
I mean, it's literally just a sorting issue.
That's great.
Chattanooga Skin and Cancer Clinic has 3 locations: Jasper, Chattanooga, and Cleveland. They truly care about their patients, their employees, and their relationships. I know this from personal experience. Give them a try. They're no problem. I was years ago, I was 22 years old. I was at Cleveland Plywood. That's when I used to sit at Cleveland Plywood every day in the mornings. And a real known, well, successful builder was there. And I won't say his name, it doesn't matter, but I said, "Hey, so-and-so," I said, "you got any advice for a young builder?" And he said, "Yeah, I do." He must have had it right on the top of his head. He said, "Yeah, I do." And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "Know your tax laws." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "I'm just saying, know your tax laws." So I started thinking in those terms, because there's a big difference between knowing. You could take somebody that owes $100,000 in taxes and very easily get it to 50 by real legitimate issues.
Sure.
That's no problem.
Absolutely.
One thing I found by getting audited by the IRS is you've got to have a receipt. And if you don't have a
It
receipt,
didn't happen.
they're not going to deduct
That's
it.
right.
I could be in the building business and say I bought 500 studs, and if I don't have a receipt, they're not going to deduct it.
That's right.
But now I could buy 10 lamps and say this one in the house, and they'd say, okay, here's your receipt.
Right.
You just need a receipt and a legitimate excuse,
That's
and
right.
it's deductible.
Or a legitimate business purpose.
A legitimate
Right.
business purpose.
Right.
Now, can that be arbitrary too?
Well, we've definitely seen individuals kind of bleed those lines of what's business use and what's not.
Yeah.
You just try to take it to say, a boat. Everybody likes to buy a boat.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the 2 best days of owning a boat was the day you bought it and the day you sold it.
Yeah.
But they'll buy a boat for business, and it's hard.
Unless you're a fisherman.
It's very hard, right? Well, I'm taking my clients out, and it's like, well, as long as you understand the risk. Let's say how much of that boat is really business use. Is it 20%, 30%? Yeah. Then maybe we can kind of lay some stakes on that boat to saying, hey, 20% of the boat is business. But don't be too aggressive with it, because if you get audited, they're going to find that, but that might create more doubt for them to look for other things.
Right. And, if you have, like say, you would be better off in that case to borrow against one of your rental houses and take the money and buy the boat and deduct it as because you can borrow against your real estate and have more debt and pay more interest.
Pay more interest.
But it's the same.
Right.
But now you get the deduction. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like your way of accounting. That's what's great about accounting, right? It's an art, not always a science.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. And I was talking with a partner the other day, and he said, you can give each of us the same numbers, we might come to a different answer. But that doesn't make your answer wrong and my answer right. It's just that we got to a different conclusion. And so I had a partner one time say, well, what's 1 + 1? And she said, well, it's anything you want it to be. We just got to figure out how to get there.
Well, it can be 2, but if you can deduct 1 or something.
Right.
But it is a lot of how you look at it.
Sure.
Like going to lunch with somebody. If we went to lunch tomorrow and I wrote down business expense, that's legitimate if we're talking business.
Sure.
Now, one thing I had is I have a cat here that I feed, and when they audited me, I had wrote down the cat food.
Cat food, yeah.
And and when she walked up, the first minute, they do that 2-hour long interview, and I said, this cat, you may find some expenses, but this cat keeps mice and rodents away.
Sure.
And that cat was laying there in the sun, and it wasn't. And she said, "That's not funny," and she was serious. And she never did discount those expenses.
Wow.
So you could argue that that's an expense.
Sure. Yeah, because you could have paid for an exterminating service to come out, right?
Yeah.
And that would have been legitimate.
That would have been legitimate.
Right.
So I just chose to pay tip, or to feed Tip.
I guess that's the cat's name. Tip.
Yeah, Tip. Okay. Yeah.
So that's probably a lot cheaper than the exterminating service.
It probably was. I probably cheated myself.
You may have.
Now, but when you put some taxes off, and you as they say, I've heard people say, "Oh, you're always going to pay them. You're just putting them off."
Sure.
I don't know if that is completely right, because they could change the tax law, and you could get out of it. Everybody knows money today is worth more than money tomorrow.
Sure.
If I get the use of that money for 10 years, then that's worth something.
Well, you talk about like extensions, right? You do an extension. Let's say you do an extension in April. Well, technically, the IRS says that even though you're extending the filing, the money is still owed April 15th.
Yeah.
But I have a numerous amount of clients that say, hey, I'm not paying until October. because you're right, the time value of money. I can actually take that money and use it now and grow it between now and October 15th. And that'll be less than the interest and penalties. So I'll accrue that and pay it in October.
Plus, from April to October, you have so much time to really get all the K1s and decipher and discern.
That's right.
You can have a whole lot better tax return just with that.
That's right.
Relaxed time.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, because some clients will file in April and we'll estimate things, right? And then we'll come up with a liability. But you're right, there could be a missing K1 that we don't prepare, and maybe it's coming from somewhere, Detroit or some other city, and it comes in and it's got a big loss on it. Well, that can impact your tax number. And now you've sent the IRS, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, 100 grand. And you're going to get that money back, and now you got to wait on it to come back.
And you don't think they're going to look at something before they send you a check?
That's right.
Always
especially when it becomes a bigger number.
A bigger number.
That's right.
Anywhere around 40,000 or 30s, they got to ask.
It seems to take a little longer the bigger the number gets.
Do you think that the IRS is? I don't want to beat up on the IRS, but they do seem somewhat. Who was it that said we're going for a more friendlier IRS? Who was that? Was that
recent?
No, a couple years ago they shot for a more friendlier IRS. I'd say they are. I'd say they're not. They have been a little more friendlier.
Yeah, I think they're easy. I mean, they're not scary. And I tell clients that all the time. They're wanting to work with you. I mean, they got a job to do. We got a job to do. Let's just give them what they need and get them and moving on their way.
Yeah.
You know, and here's the things that you could be at risk for. You know, just looking at the tax file, looking at the things we have. Here's where you're open, and just having a direct conversation with the client about it. But usually the tax IRS auditor's great to work with. They're kind, they're respectful. They just have a job to do.
A lot of times they're just from Chattanooga and they're coming down here.
That's right.
They're just like me and you.
Everybody assumes that the IRS auditor is in a black suit with a black tie and black sunglasses.
That ain't the case.
No.
Are you a big proponent of annuities?
You know, I don't deal much with investments. Annuities are unique in that there's a holding period. I think it just depends on what your level of risk is as an investor and maybe your age bracket. I don't think for somebody like me an annuity would make sense. You know, but maybe my grandmother might make more sense for her.
And it might have made sense if you just bought one and you waited till you was your grandmother's age.
Sure, that's right. But I don't deal with a lot of investments. We have a wealth management firm, HHM Wealth. That's what I love about our firm is that we have multiple arms. And, you know, I had a client ask me about life insurance the other day as a question I never got before. You know, I just punted it to those guys and said, hey, give me some guidance, help me, make me look smart. And luckily we have enough people in the room that can make you look smart and go back to the client. They think you know everything, but I got the answer from somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you have 200 people.
Is Osborne, who are you related to here?
You know, my dad's from deep South Georgia, so Tifton area. My grandmother and grandfather passed away many, many years ago here in Bradley County. And, I don't think I have any family here.
What brought y'all here?
Suspicion is industry, work. I mean,
Bow Waters? Or?
No, my grandfather was in the construction industry, ran a jackhammer on the construction side, and my grandmother actually worked at the old woolen mill.
The old woolen mill.
And they both died. I mean, they died probably in my grandfather probably died in the 60s.
What year would they have come here? Like maybe after the war or something?
I'm going to say probably early 60s. So you would have been a little while after World War II, but I'm going to say early 60s they came up here. My dad was born in 57, so I'm going to say early 60s.
So your dad was, where did he do?
He was a forklift driver for Duracell and Coca-Cola. And blue collar guy, worked for those businesses for many years. He started off kind of in the photographic industry, and then that kind of, that started kind of going down. Mm-hmm. And so he started driving forklifts for Duracell, and then eventually moved over to Coca-Cola.
Are y'all? Where were you raised? What part of Cleveland?
So I was raised over in the Oak Grove area.
The Oak Grove School. Did you go to Oak Grove School?
I did. My dad actually went to school there as well.
Is that right?
Back when it was in the old, because where the building is now, they used to be across the street. And he used to go to school.
I never knew that.
Yeah, he used to go to school when it was there.
Were you there when before they built the playground, or was that built when you went there?
Let's see. So I transferred there in 3rd grade because I started off at Stewart.
I went to Stewart.
Went to Stewart K through half of 3rd grade, and then transferred over to Oak Grove. And it would have been Teddy Bryson's first year.
At Oak Grove?
First year at Oak Grove.
He was my teacher at Bradley.
Okay. Now, Mr. Rowe was the president before that at Oak Grove, and he was there for 40 years. And that's who my dad had as a principal. And but yeah, so I went to school there, and then I went to Truett when it was Truett, and then I was one of the first classes out of Walker Valley, because back then they gave you a choice.
Boy, Walker you Valley. Are young, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't feel that way sometimes, but yeah.
Golly.
The gray hair, I usually get it classified into.
Did you like Oak Grove better than Stewart?
I was never a big school guy, Dee, quite honestly. I went and got the grades and left.
Why accounting?
That's a good question. I started off, so you were asking me about my being raised. I mean, my parents, we were just a family that kind of scraped by day in, day out. We just kind of made it work. And my mom and my dad both worked really hard just to try to keep food on the table and clothes on our back and a roof over our head. And so I kind of was under this impression that I was never going to stay in Cleveland. I said, the day I turned 18, I'm out. I had enrolled to go to the Air Force, and that was what I was planning on doing. And something just kind of changed my mind. Like, I don't think this is what I'm called to do. And so I said, well, let's back up and explore. So I kind of started thinking about my career, maybe my senior year of high school. And I thought, I'm just going to stay local. I'm going to go to Lee, live at home with mom and dad. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it, but I'll figure it out. And so I went there, started off as a pre-med major, thinking I was interested in pediatrics. And I took a biochemistry class. I said, I'm not doing this. And so then it was like, well, let's take a class and see what I'm good at. And I happened to take an accounting class, and day one, something just clicked. And I said, I think I can do this for a career. Are there career options, right? Then I started looking at career options for it, and it just worked out in my favor. I made the right decision.
Were you good in math?
Always good at math. I say always. About middle school, math started making sense. And I think it's when you start adding the letters into the numbers, I like that part. The basic math, I struggled with multiplication. I struggled with all that stuff as a kid.
The times tables.
Couldn't get it. But as I kind of moved up and got into algebra, and I think I ended up taking calculus in high school, and I couldn't do it now, but back then, I just loved it. It was challenging.
See, I relate algebra to accounting for some reason. Sure. Because you're just trying to get two things equal.
I think that's a great way to look at it. And I think maybe that's why I like accounting, is I started liking math when it became algebra.
Because you get to explain, you keep working things till they're even.
Right. That's exactly right. Till you get to a solution.
Do you think that, but still yet, what is it about accounting? Is it putting the numbers together?
Yeah.
Sorting?
I think it's really, from a professional standpoint, I like the fact that every day is different.
But I mean from a
number standpoint,
just a basic. Would you rather just sit here and work a spreadsheet? Would you be happy doing that?
No. I think it's taking numbers and putting them it's almost like a puzzle. I'm taking numbers and I'm pulling all these things together. And when you can sit down and look at a final product, there's a sense of reward that comes along with it. When you take a final product to a client and you sit down with them and you go through it, and you can see on their face how important going through that tax return was, there's a sense of reward that comes along with it. I had a staff person tell me the other day, I don't feel like what I do helps people. And I said, you are helping people. You're doing things that they can never do themselves. And then you're taking it and you're giving them a final product, and you're explaining that final product to them to help their understanding, because they got to know what they're doing. You know, the greatest risk is that you're filing a return, which you're taking full responsibility for, and you don't even know what it says.
That is really eye-opening.
That's right.
Because you're signing, every year we sign our tax returns saying this is correct, and I have no clue.
That's right. And so my job as a professional is to make sure you understand. And a story recently, I went and sat down with a client for an hour and a half, and I went page by page, Dee, and we walked through the entire return. And that family, when they walked away, that family felt a sense of, I understand what we did this year, and it makes sense. Of course, I go home and tell my wife, and she...
What does she do?
She's a teacher, school teacher.
Where at?
Tennessee Christian Preparatory School.
Yeah.
So she's in second grade with 6 boys and girls.
Well, it's not a very big class, is it?
It's not. You know, it's a smaller school.
Yeah.
She was in the city school system for a period of time, and unfortunately those classroom sizes got to be 25 kids per class with no assistance.
It would be hard to give attention to 25 kids.
It's hard. And they all are on different learning skills, which makes it difficult.
Yeah. 25 different levels.
That's right. And our son was there, and he was really having a hard time. I think he was overwhelmed in just the classroom size. And so we made a decision during COVID to and we didn't like the schools were shutting down. So we made a decision to move them to a small private school, see what it would be like.
Yeah.
And man, our son, both of our boys have done really good in that environment. And they have anywhere from 6 to 10 students in their class.
There's a big argument for those, what do they call those, not satellite schools, but I forget what they call those schools when they're private, but they're not.
Yeah, there's some of them in Chattanooga.
Yeah.
Where as long as you provide your own transportation.
Yeah.
Magnet schools.
Magnet schools,
you're right.
Yeah.
So we went that route, and this year they called my wife and said she'd been doing some substitute teaching there and enjoyed a year of staying at home after COVID. And they called her and said, hey, our second grade teacher left. We'd like for you to come. My wife was like, we were in Disney World at the time, and she said, well, I guess I'm going back to teaching.
What, was she from Cleveland?
She's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And she ended up moving to Columbus, Mississippi. I think that was the name of the city, Mississippi. Her father's work transferred him there. And then eventually he transferred to Cleveland, and he did some subcontractor work for Maytag.
Teaching is such a unrewarding field, isn't it?
I think, and not to speak for her, I think it's rewarding, but I think the reward takes longer, right? I talk about doing numbers and tax returns. And every year I'm seeing some type of product and something being produced. And a student will graduate to the next level, but I don't think you can see the true student's potential until they've left and they get out into the world and they go to college and they become a professional. Like, then you start to see the result of what you did, and you played a role in it, although not. It's hard to kind of determine what your role is, especially in second grade, but you played some role in that student's life.
And you may not get a compliment from that student for 30 years.
Sure. And I think that's what she likes about Tennessee Christian with being a smaller school. She has a great relationship with all the parents and the students, and I think there's a sense of happiness and love about coming to school and being challenged day in, day out.
Were you driving from Cumberland Hills all the way to Chattanooga for a while?
I've been doing it for 14 years.
14 years. Where is the location in Chattanooga?
So it's on Market Street.
So that's downtown.
Downtown.
Did you go Shalford 58 or how did you get there?
No, I went straight 75 to 24.
That's dangerous at times, isn't it?
You know, I was telling my wife that the other day. I have been so blessed. 14 years.
14
and
years.
I've not had a single car
Twice
accident.
a day.
Twice a day. Not had a single car accident. Yeah.
Knock on wood.
I got 2 more months.
Yeah.
2 more months.
We shouldn't have said that.
But, you know, I think as you mature, you start to learn there's something to be said about just staying in the slow lane.
Boy, there he is in the consistent lane.
That's right.
It's the tortoise and the hare
That's right.
scenario.
Because if you get in a position of I'm going to rush through this, that's where accidents happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned you find a good podcast and you listen to it.
That's right.
Just drive the
ride.
road slow.
What kind do you listen to usually?
You know, my wife has got me turned on these murder mysteries or these murder.
Yeah.
They're real life stories. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you, after about 3 of them, you got to stop listening to them for a couple of days because you're looking over your shoulder all the time.
It shines a little bit of a dark cloud on you.
Yeah.
Just like that Forensic Files.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who's that? I like that one guy on Dateline.
Oh yeah, he's good with the voice.
Yeah. What's his name? Ken or?
I don't know. They're all good though.
He'll say, and guess who was behind the door? I know he had one guy on there he was talking to, and she said they wouldn't let me call anyone. He said, not even your mother. You know, he's really good. You know, he's the father of another famous actor. I can't remember who it is. You remember who that guy is, Glenn?
I can see him, but
yeah.
I don't.
He's from Canada.
Okay.
But the murder mysteries are, I don't know what that is, but they are appealing, aren't
It's
they?
a phenomenon, it feels like.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife she'll listen to now I can't spread myself. Like she'll listen to like 5 or 6 different podcasts. I'm like, just give me one.
Stay with that for a while.
Just one. I don't need to listen to 5 or 6.
Series or something.
Right. I'm good with series.
Yeah. Did you play any sports in high school?
I played basketball.
You are tall. How tall are
I'm
you?
about 6'6".
Golly.
6'5", 6'6". The older I get, the shorter I get. So.
You think you've gotten an inch shorter?
You know, I started working out over at Body by Hannah with my trainer, Hannah Davis. She's fantastic.
I've had her on the show.
She's fantastic.
She really is.
And she's been working with me for the past 4 or 5 months. And she thinks it's more of a posture thing. You know, she doesn't think I've gotten shorter. She said, we just got to work on your posture. And I think there's something to be said about that.
Does she still do mostly Zoom, or does she do?
I think she's back to in person. I think she went to Zoom during all this COVID stuff. But
you think she's helped you?
Oh, absolutely.
3 months?
3 months, I've lost probably 12 pounds already, and really changed my body composition from you know a higher fat content to more muscle.
How often do you go?
Twice a week.
What times?
Monday and Wednesday afternoon after work.
Like 5:30 or something?
After work, yeah.
Just you and her? Is it?
My wife goes too.
So it's a one-on.
Mm-hmm. And she usually does things in teams. We have another lady that joins us that we're friends with already. So it's a team of 3. But we really enjoy it.
Well, if you miss a day, is that okay?
Yeah, she's usually pretty flexible.
She
doesn't charge you, but she wants you there.
Yeah.
She wants you there. We usually try to work up makeup times. Like tomorrow I'm going at lunch because it's Halloween. You know, I'm supposed to be there.
Are you trying to really stick with this 2 days a week thing?
Still trying to do it, that's right.
How long are you going to keep it up, you think?
As long as I can. I enjoy it. It makes me feel better.
Boy, it does, doesn't it?
And really, in our industry, mental health is so important.
Oh, yeah.
You sit down behind a computer all day long. You look at the screen. I mean, you can go a whole day without interacting with anybody if you want to.
Let me tell you about Capstar Bank. They're located in Nashville, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Athens, Madisonville, Sweetwater, Etowah, and in Cleveland at 950 25th Street and 3855 North Ocoee Street. I've used them. I like them. Give them a try. They're no problem. I always wondered how accountants can get in the zone of doing somebody's taxes or something, and then the phone rings. rings,
Yeah.
and you're talking to this guy, and then that other phone rings.
Yeah.
And I always, people say, I called my accountant and he didn't call me back. I'm thinking, well, he's doing his accounting. You can't expect him to stop.
And I think our firm, we do a good job because of our size of having different levels of experience, right? So typically I have a whole team. It's me and 4 or 5 other people that typically work together. And I play a different role in that tax return than somebody else, right? Maybe somebody else is putting in all the numbers, and maybe this person's doing this, and then I'm kind of pulling in to say, hey, I'm doing a review and signing and making sure everything's right? So we kind of work as a team on everything, because you're right, I get about 100 calls a day, and my typical turnaround time is I should have called my clients back within 12 hours. Right, so I give it 12 hours, and if they call me at 5 o'clock, then they got to understand the next day by 2, I'll give you a ring.
A lot of times, if you don't call somebody back till the next day, they've already answered their own question.
That's the risk you run. And I've got clients that'll call. They all have my cell phone number. I don't try to avoid them. I want them to text me. People nowadays like to text. I don't really get that, but they will text a lot. And I try not to put anything like that over text. I'll pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, here's what we need to discuss, or talk about, and walk through it on the phone. But I've got one older client who's just a night owl. He'll call me at 11 o'clock, and I try to answer the phone because he's a tough guy to get, and he's got weird business hours. And so I answer it at 11 o'clock, and we'll talk.
Tell me about the new building. How did y'all get a hold of that?
So we knew we wanted to come to Cleveland. We have a lot of team members who live here. We have a lot of team members who are at the edge of Ooltewah or Harrison, and let's be honest, they'd rather drive here than drive to Chattanooga. And so our goal was, let's see if we can get 15 people, and let's start up an office in Cleveland. So we kind of started walking down the path and met with some people who own buildings, looked at them, and ultimately we just said, none of these really fit what we want to do. So our next option was, let's contact the city of Cleveland and see if they own any buildings and would just like for us to restore them. And we met with the city of Cleveland, Mayor Brooks, Joe Fivas, and the rest of their team, all fantastic people. And really they came to us that day, I think with 2 buildings, if I remember correctly, and one of them was the Ben Moore building. And we walked across the street and looked at it, and I don't know if you were in that building.
I've been in it, yeah.
There was hair growing on the floor. That's how bad it was. Yeah. And our managing partner, Donnie Hutcherson, when he walked through the building, I think he had this little twinkle in his eye that I could not envision what this would look like. But he somehow looked at that piece of real estate and said, this is the one we want. And the city did. I mean, the city worked with us fantastic. They gave it to us at the right price. They partnered with us on it because ultimately, if you go back to 2015, they were going to destroy the building and turn it into a parking lot. Yeah. And I don't think anybody wants that with an old building. And so we told them, we said, hey, here's what we did in Chattanooga. We bought our building in Chattanooga, completely dilapidated, turned it into something really nice. And we said, we want to recreate that in Cleveland. And when they saw kind of what we did and they knew the history of our firm, they were like, we believe in you and we'll sell it to you.
Were you able to use the second floor framing, or did you have to take all that down?
Yeah, so the second floor had pretty much collapsed. There was a hole in the roof, and the second floor had water on it.
You couldn't hardly get to the far end without walking across that.
That's right. And the stairs had already collapsed into the main floor. Yeah. So you couldn't even, whenever we acquired it, you couldn't even get to the second floor at all. We were just kind of looking around all the destruction. The building was unique. Back in the 20s, I guess, when they were built it, and then when they renovated it somewhere along the way, just the structure was not very sturdy. There was a lot of, hey, here's a steel beam on top of a wood pole, and it almost looked like there was a balancing act.
And the mortar mix was all decaying between the joints.
It was rough. So we stepped in and it was amazing how fast it came together. And you drive by there now. I tell everybody, we're moving in December. If you drive by that building, it does not look like we are moving in December. But the whole outside is windows. And there, you may know there's a back order on windows. I don't know what's going on.
I waited on one job for 28 weeks for windows.
That's amazing.
28 weeks.
That's amazing. Now, I hope I don't have to wait 28 weeks, but that is right now.
Are they in yet?
Not yet. They're setting us back, though. But if you were to look inside the building, you'll see it's framed out. The floors are done. I mean, it looks great.
So you had to demo the whole second floor,
everything,
take the roof off because it was
everything,
and then build walls inside the walls
right.
to hold the floor system up.
That's right. Yeah, there for a period of time, the contractor said, "Hey, this building could cave in.
Yeah,
we don't want it to, but it very well could."
It didn't, did it?
It did.
He's done a good job.
Done a great job. It's Gentech Construction.
I don't know them. I noticed they keep the perimeter real good, and they seem to keep the job clean and don't have excess materials there.
Right.
When a lot of times you can tell if people don't know what they're doing, they'll have stuff there before they need it.
Right. Yeah, Gentech is a client of the firm. We try to use clients on everything we do, and they're doing this building, and it looks great so far.
What about the architect?
Architect. I can't even remember who the architect was, Dee. But again, I know we used the client for sure. But
it's going to look good. You got plenty of parking.
That's probably one of the biggest hiccups I think with that building is there's not a lot of parking. The county fire department has been great to work with as well. They've allotted some spots for us on their parking lot up against, facing the museum.
Right.
And they've allotted those parking spots for us. And then you got probably, 6 to 10 behind the building if you squeeze them in real well. And then I think the museum has been welcoming to say, hey, as long as we don't have any events, you're happy, you're more than free to park.
You wouldn't be there while they're event. You just need what, 10, 20 parking spaces?
Yeah, I've got 15 people. So you figure one car for each one of them, and some of them may not even drive. I mean, there's several people. I've got one individual who's less than a mile from the office.
Are you going? How many square feet is that? Like 4,000?
7,000.
3,500 floor?
I think you're probably right. It's probably closer to 8, maybe 4 a floor.
You have to have a fire escape or anything?
We do have one out the upstairs. There will be a toward the back end of the building. There'll be a nice fire escape that goes down into a courtyard.
You have a elevator?
No elevator.
Wide stairs getting up, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder how old that building is.
I believe the record said it was built in the 20s.
There's been some speculation that there's a tunnel underneath there.
Really?
Have you heard that?
I haven't. I haven't.
Yeah.
I can tell you this: the sewer line was real small. I know we had to kind of blow that out and make it bigger.
Yeah, probably
take it underneath
an
the
old
road.
clay line and stuff
I'm
like
sure.
that. But if you go across the street to the old printing place,
okay,
and you go down in the basement and walk towards Inman Street, there is a tunnel going under that road.
Wow.
And some say that it goes all the way to the Rot House that's across the railroad track.
Mm-hmm. And that was during the Civil War period.
During the Civil War, and they don't know if it was an underground. Some speculate that it was a part of the Underground Railroad for the slaves.
Wow. Now, my dad used to work in that printing building.
Oh, for Perkle? Perkle.
That's right.
What's his first name?
Was it Dennis?
No.
David? Maybe David.
David. He's a real nice guy.
Yeah, that's been years. I mean, it's been
years ago.
Decades ago.
He hadn't been. He still owns the building.
Does he?
Mm-hmm.
It's exciting to see all those buildings kind of get some refurbishment.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the housing units that are going in right there at the Sandra Hosiery. What is that? Is it the Sandra?
Sandra Hosiery building?
Yeah.
Where are you going to eat lunch when you're over there?
Well, I thought I was going to eat at that deli across the street.
They're
closing.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll probably go to I love Cafe Roma.
Oh, I do too. Yeah,
that's my favorite.
I do too. Cafe Roma and Gardner's is good.
Right.
But I haven't been in there but once since the COVID. I don't know if they've got seating in the back or not.
They do now. I went in for the first time in several years.
They got something blocking there like a
bookcase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked it better open.
Yeah, there's
so there's seating
in the back.
behind them.
There is.
They're still playing the Three Stooges on the TV?
I don't know. I don't think so.
He runs it constantly.
Really?
Yeah, Three
It's
Stooges.
one of my favorite places too.
Yeah.
But you'll see me more often at Cafe Roma.
You know, do you ever get the cheese board?
At Cafe?
Yeah. They have the appetizer, the
I
cheese
tend
board.
to just go for the same thing at lunch.
What do you eat?
I just get a ravioli and a Caesar salad every day.
I get the
I keep it simple.
what do they call it? Shoot, I can't remember. Capernelli pancetta.
Yeah.
I believe that's what it's spaghetti.
Yeah, they had something the other day with ravioli that I had to try. I had something.
Yeah. Do you stick with the same thing? Are you a routine guy?
I'm a routine guy. Very routine. That's the accountant in me.
That is funny, isn't it?
It is.
You will not find an accountant that's not routine.
I think it's rare.
Do you think there's anything different coming from accounting, or is it always going to be similar?
Well, I think there's always going to be potential changes. And the reason being is like, I don't know, I've always said it creates some job stability if there's change, right? You talk about international accounting standards. You know, FASB what governs the United States is moving more international. You know, there's this new lease standard that came out, and you know, if you have a lease on a building, you've got to put that building now on your balance sheet, and that's more of an international accounting.
I've seen that.
But I sense that those are going to keep, you know, blending, and there's always going to be changes at the IRS when it comes to taxes. I mean, you figure every election, something new will come about.
Something's always a little tweak, and you know, they're going to inheritance tax this year, not next year. We're going to put it on the schedule next year.
Right.
You know, something. My accountant used to make me on my financial statement. He would discount the value of real estate for what the real estate agent would charge you.
So about 6%? Is that?
Yeah,
okay.
Because he said if you sell it, you're going to have an agent, and we've got to account for that. So he would discount. I thought that was a little extreme. So I had to add so he could subtract.
You add a little more to it. I get
You know, it's hard to. Most personal financial statements are ambiguous too, right?
Sure. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're really basing your personal financial statement on fair market value. You can't do that for your business.
You can't do it.
But you can on your personal financial statement.
Because you can say, I've got a couch worth $1,500 and you couldn't give it away.
That's right. That's right. But you know, you can make it more complex, but thank God it's not, right?
Right.
Let's talk about you have investments. Let's say you have a property. Mm-hmm. How difficult would it be to have to do an appraisal every time you had to do a financial statement?
The appraisers would love it.
They would. You never get it done.
Never get it done.
Because they're always on back
3
order.
weeks behind.
Right. Right. And you need the personal financial statement next week.
And you could get 2 of them to do it, and it'd come up with 2 different ideas anyway.
That's right. You just pay the one you want the higher value to.
Yeah.
Right?
Then you got to get 2 of them.
That's right. So I think that's the joy of a personal financial statement is I can just take your word for it. I don't have to know that property. I don't have to go to that property. I don't have to see the property. I'm going to trust that you know it pretty in depth. But
that is not an audited financial
That's
statement.
correct.
That gets to be a whole nother level.
That's really considered compiled. Meaning like I took your data and I put it into a financial statement format.
Now, every 2 years I have to get my contractor's license and I have to get it audited.
Okay.
And so they actually go to the jobs and see materials on the ground and has that invoice been paid. I mean, it's extensive.
Sure.
And I think after they do an audit, the next year they can do a compilation.
Or a review.
A review, yeah.
Right. I like, my favorite is review. I just got to do some analytical procedures. I got to inquire on some things, and you got to sign an engagement letter. And we're pretty much done.
Why is the engagement letter so important?
That's just it's mandated first. Our industries, FASB kind of mandates that you have an engagement letter for those types of services, and it just lays out what's your responsibility, what's my responsibility, what am I preparing for you that maybe is could impair my independence, right?
Yeah.
Could me preparing a tax return impair my independence? Well, I'll list all those things out and tell you that that's your responsibility. You're taking ownership of it and you're reviewing it.
And in that you're going to say you're going to give me the information to the best of your ability,
That's right.
and I'm going to record it.
That's right. That's right. So an engagement letter is really a protection measure
For both
for us
yeah.
and for you.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a good idea, but a lot of times they'll get you to sign the engagement letter when they hand you your tax return.
Well, we try to get it as early as possible, right? Because what would happen? I deliver you the tax return, and you say, "Hey, I really didn't want to work with you." Well, if you don't sign it,
now you got all this information.
Now I got court issues with trying to collect my money from
right.
you.
That's right.
So we do it upon initial setup, and you only sign if you were a tax only client, you only sign one. And it has continuing language at the back end of it that says, hey, this agreement will continue unless you fire me or I fire you. Now, on a review or an audit, you got to do one every year. On an audit, you got to do one every year. Review and comp, it can have continuing language.
On the courthouse square at 30 2nd Street is the law firm of Logan Thompson Law. Since 1965, they have served the legal needs for the good citizens of Cleveland-Bradley County. If you've got a problem, they're no problem. Give them a call.
Have you ever do you know what they call it? Let's see. What is it when you're a lawyer and a CPA? What's it called?
So a JD with a CPA license?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are powerful people, aren't they?
They are. They're smart people.
Smart people.
I tell you, if you're smart enough to go get your lawyer license and a CPA license, you're something else.
And they won't, and the IRS really won't mess with you when you have some of those. You have some of those people at your firm.
Yeah, we've got a lot of different degrees and different certifications along the way. We've learned the IRS has become more random, though. I mean, it feels like a lottery now.
It's almost like a computer spits out the abnormalities.
Now, if they're doing so much matching, right? You talked earlier about a K-1. Well, if you filed your return without that K-1, and that K-1 was registered on your Social Security number, they'll do a matching notice that says, hey, you didn't pick this income up, and you should have. But the audits now, I think because there's so few IRS audit agents now, I mean, they're struggling with it. It's a lottery.
I had an IRA one time, and I put it all in a Roth. I thought, well, I'll do this early so I won't have to, there was an advantage, and they transferred all but $197. So I didn't know I had a IRA for $197. So when they finally realized it, they sent me a check for $197.
Okay.
I cash it.
Sure.
4 years later, I get a letter from the IRS saying, you did not claim this $197. And they were suspicious about it.
Because you didn't put your 1099-R on your tax return.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just, you think that that's not a big deal because it's not a big number.
Right.
But it's not really got anything to do with the number. It's the process.
That's right. Yeah, because they were unable to match that form to your Social Security number. And it generates a notice. It's an automatic notice at that point.
But have you ever had anybody do what they call a no change thing where a no change audit?
Yeah. Where they came in and audited you, but they found nothing to your benefit and nothing to your...
And then they call you again in a few years later and you say, you filed again, and they say, oh, okay, yeah, we remember. It's just a computer picked this up and we're all good.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you as a CPA, you try to be an advocate for your client, right? We had a client that got audited 2 straight years, and on the 3rd audit, we said, guys, this is an extreme disservice to our client. They showed you the other 2 years they did nothing wrong. Every time we have to pull all these records, it adds more time to our team members. And so you can be an advocate for your client and tell the IRS, listen, we've already done this for multiple years already.
He's doing the same thing.
Same thing. You found nothing the other 2 audits, so can we just move on? And they're flexible. They get it.
Do they sometimes say, okay, because you're the advocate?
That's right. They
You're
will.
almost acting as a lawyer in a sense.
That's
Not
right.
an advocate would be the word. Liaison.
You are trying to kind of work in your client's corner.
Mm-hmm.
You're not giving legal advice, but at least having the discussion. We get a power of attorney. We have the discussions with the IRS. We are in essence the voice of the client at that point in time.
That is a big responsibility.
Oh, it is.
You ever get frustrated at work?
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody does. There's always those things that pop up. I think the hardest part is clients don't always know what it takes to get something done. Mm-hmm. I picked up a new client recently, and it's been tough sledding. I mean, I think their return is bigger than they ever thought it was. And when you kind of start pulling everything together, it just takes a substantial amount of time. And they think that you should just be able to take the forms, drop it in, and be done. And that's just not what we do.
No, and you have to have the backup for it.
Right.
Each line has a lot of backup.
But I also need to be thinking outside the box. This is what you've given me. Mm-hmm. What else is there that maybe you haven't given me that can reduce that tax liability? Mm-hmm. Right? So I'm trying to think in favor of that client as well at the same time.
A good CPA will save what their charge is.
That's right. That's right. And in our firm stand, we're not trying to be the lowest cost provider. We're trying to be the highest value add for our clients.
What's your when you get burnout or whatever, is this workout routine? Is that your thing?
I think that's something that I started figuring out, like going and exerting some energy through a workout.
Yeah. Just
helps you clear your mind. It does something to mental health.
I can't explain it. I know what you're. I ride road bikes.
Yeah, that's great.
And if you could put it, when you get finished riding, if you could put that in a form of a pill.
That's right.
Everybody would be hooked on it.
Because when I leave Hannah's, when I'm done working out, I'm sweaty, I'm nasty, I'm sore,
and man, feeling
it
good.
Feels great. It feels like I can go, fight another battle the next day. It really does.
I rode 60 miles yesterday.
Wow.
And I was sore, and I'm sore now, but man, it feels good. It is a weird thing, isn't it?
Did you play sports?
Just some, but I was baseball and wrestled some.
I think that's where I get mine from. Is there's a sense of competition, or there's a sense of athletic ability. I think that it just does something to me mentally.
I think the organized sports are too maybe politically motivated in a sense, and not everybody can stay after school.
That's
Some people's parents can't pick them up, and
it's a lot expensive.
Of things. Yeah, a lot of stuff that goes into that, but besides just being a good athlete.
Absolutely.
So I think that if you can get involved in extracurricular stuff like riding a bike or even yoga or I would like to take yoga. I think that would be what.
Sure.
But I think it's important to get your heartbeat up and really struggle for breath. That's right. That's so important. I think it cleanses filters your blood somehow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it. From my mental health standpoint, I can tell a change in like my positivity or my excitement to go to work. It's greater when I'm going to the gym. You can't
explain it. I went to this road. They were having some benefit thing. It's been 8 years ago or so, and cyclists aren't real talkative. They're more introverts.
Sure.
I think.
Sure.
So, and plus when you're riding, you're not really talking. You're just riding.
So there was
just me and and so it was left out about. It was one of those 7 o'clock leave out, and I was still sleeping. There was literally frost on my sleeve.
Wow.
Because it was cold out.
Sure.
And so, and this guy, I guess he came from Chattanooga or somewhere. He was one of these real enthusiasts, and he was riding in this group race. There was about like 60 people riding in it. So I was behind him, and we was going down Lead Mine Valley Road. He hadn't said a word. I hadn't said a word. I was standing right behind him. And the sun came up. It's got to be about 8:30, and the sun was, and the frost started melting on my sleeve, and you could feel that sun on your right side. And I said, I can't remember. I said, this is why we bang our heads against the wall. And all he did was went, and just kept on. It was the only thing he said in the whole 60 miles. So we agreed on that point.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
But that is, now jogging, I could probably get the same thing out of jogging.
Sure.
But with exercise going to Hannah's, you know what time you're going to go. You know what time you're going to leave. You about know what you got to wear. You know the people. You know the people.
Right.
It's all a route that goes along with your routine.
The surprise is the workout. The Hannah customized.
But it doesn't matter. It's within that hour.
That's right.
Now, how does she know what to? I've had her on the show, but how does she know what to make you do?
I think that's her professional ability. I mean, every day she knows what she wants to work out, and she's already I love her organization. I show up, and she knows. I mean, we're ready to go as soon as we walk through the door.
You changed there, or you already changed?
I'm usually already changed, ready to go.
Is it like 1 hour?
1 hour, an intense 1 hour. Sometimes it feels like 2, but it's 1 hour.
Does she have you do any kettlebells or?
Absolutely.
They're hard, aren't they? Golly.
She is creative to the point to where sometimes I'm saying some not so nice things under my breath, and she always gets a laugh out of me.
She looks strong herself.
She's very strong. I tell you, she's picked up the weight she's given me and made me look like a little
That
weakling.
would be a little embarrassing.
She's very strong.
Do you get over that pretty easy?
Yeah, I've learned not to
worry about that.
My wingspan. I'm 6'6". My wingspan's probably greater than that. I'm not the strongest guy in the room, nor do I want to be the strongest guy.
I always thought people that had long arms had better leverage.
I don't know.
That was my excuse. I thought, well, they're long arms. I got
long legs. You'd think they'd be faster, but I'm not. So.
What else do you do? Is that about it?
I've been picking up some basketball here recently with some guys at Michigan Avenue School. I love playing basketball.
I mean, like just intramural?
Yeah, just picking up a bunch of old guys come together and play basketball. I enjoy doing that. I serve through United Way. I give back a lot of time there. Stephanie Linkus is a fantastic lady.
Really works hard, doesn't she?
Yeah, Kayla Sugar, the whole team over there is fantastic people. And so I'm on the board there, also the president of their young professional circle. And I enjoy kind of bringing young people together and really focusing on philanthropic, giving back to the community. I think it's ultra important. I believe in their mission and what they're doing. Also work a lot with the Chamber of Commerce. Mike Griffin, Lisa Fain, the rest of the team over there is great people, and have enjoyed doing that.
I could see you one day in public office.
That's been a goal. I would say that's something I've always been interested in.
You've got that thing.
I really like people, and I like to know that maybe the decisions that I'm making help provide a positive impact to my community. And so maybe you're predicting something here, Dee.
I'm seeing it. I've talked with a lot of politicians here and a lot of professional people, and I believe that's where you're headed.
Well,
wait and see if I'm not right. I'm always right.
I kind of look up to Mayor Brooks a lot. I mean, I really like Mayor Brooks.
I love Mayor Brooks.
There's something about his professionalism, and there's something about him.
I think it's passion.
Oh, it is.
Passion.
And it comes through in kind of the way he talks and
everything he says.
He just seems genuine.
We could call him right now and he'd say hello.
Absolutely. And I guarantee you if I did the same thing, he'd do the same thing. He's just a fantastic guy.
But I believe you're going to be something really high up.
I hope so. I appreciate you saying that. I'm excited about leading the office here in Cleveland first.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and Cleveland needs that. We need a well-organized thing because a lot of them, we had Fritz Harris and all of them. Everything's done good, and and then we got individual CPAs. But it's just good to have a good firm here.
Sure.
You know.
We're excited about it. Again, I'm born and raised here, so it's, you know, when they gave me the opportunity to do an office here, I said, oh, of course.
Yeah.
Why would I not?
Is that Osborne? That's with an E, right?
That's right.
How do you pronounce that exactly? Osborne.
Osborne.
Is what nationality is that?
I did a 20. Have you ever done a 23andMe?
No,
Like
I'm conspiracy
Oh,
theorist.
okay. Are you? So I've always thought I was German, but I actually think I came back more. I had a little bit of Irish in me, and I want to say British, or maybe English. I can't remember.
I'm
what
seeing
it was.
some British.
So it was amazing because I always thought German, and my dad didn't know. I mean, he didn't know at all. So, but yeah, it's funny to hear you say conspiracy theorist on it. But I did it, and
they've got your number now.
They do. So, but I've never even. I don't even know if there's.
What's the 23 about? Is that 23
I think
chromosomes?
It's like chromosomes or something.
Yeah.
Now my sister did it, and I always thought I was adopted somewhere along the way, and I'm different than most of my family, right? So you always like, am I? But my sister, it was cool to kind of see us being kind of partnered together on that.
Usually there's even a relative, maybe a couple years down the line that you more
absolutely
in line with, maybe a great grandfather or something like that.
You know what I have been? I don't keep up with that 23andMe again because I've always worried, like, am I going to connect to a family member that I didn't want to connect to? Like, so I've never really focused on that after that.
There's some people that claim that it's not that accurate.
I don't even know. They could have just scammed me and took my $100.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
Well, you figure $100. What are you going to get for that?
Right.
Can you write off post office box?
Absolutely. Through the business?
Yeah.
Now, it does come through a little different on the personal side, but absolutely you can on the business. And they may have eliminated it because there's so many things that change over time. But used to, you could put your P.O. box on like Schedule A. But it was like you had to be like less than 3% or more than 3% of your AGI or something before you ever got the benefit.
And it's not a very big, but all of those things add up, don't they?
They do. I would tell you to maximize every deduction you get. I mean, if you paid for it and it's business related, take the deduction.
If you paid for it, try to get it deducted.
And I have so many clients want to do tax planning, but there's so much tax planning that requires an expenditure. And for every dollar you spend, your benefit from a taxation standpoint is just your tax bracket.
That's right.
So sometimes it doesn't make sense. So I had a client call me years ago. He had $1 million house, and he said, "I'm gonna pay my mortgage off." And I was celebrating that. I'm like, do it, pay that mortgage off. He's like, "Well, I don't want to because I'm gonna lose my interest deduction." And I said, hang on. I said, so you're willing to pay a bank $10,000? I just threw out a number, $10,000, to avoid paying the IRS $4,000. And he said, I never thought about it that way. And I said, be mindful that you're paying somebody else money and you're only getting a benefit of a percentage of that.
But what if you borrowed against the house to take the cash to make something else and deducted that from it?
That could be something he did. That's exactly right.
If you do one, you get the MC Hedrick Award. If you do another, you can do one thing and get the MC Hedrick Award, and you can do it another route and go to prison.
Depends on how much you can relate it back to business.
That's right.
But you're right. There's unique ways of doing things, and for him, I just think he couldn't see the grand scheme. Like, I don't want to pay somebody else more money just to avoid paying the IRS.
Right.
From a cash flow standpoint, it didn't make sense.
Yeah. Come up with an expense.
Right. Yeah. Go borrow against the house and buy you some rental properties.
If y'all aren't in till January, is that okay with you?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's not a big rush.
Yeah,
Plus,
absolutely.
if really you can just get past February's up. You just need to be comfortable before tax season.
I'll be honest with you, we pick up more clients in the fourth quarter of the year than any time of the year, right? Because all the businesses are looking. You figure if they extended the business, that business return was filed in September, and then if they extended their personal, that's filed in October. Well, right after October is when they start thinking, am I happy with my CPA?
Right.
So from October 15th through December 31st, those wheels are spinning. So we pick a lot of clients up during this period of time.
Remember what Poor Richard's Almanac said?
What?
Never change plumbers or accountants.
It's the hard. It is a difficult change, but I'll tell you, it's not a change you should make every year. You know, but there should be a healthy evaluation of, am I getting what I need? Am I getting the guidance I need? Or is there a change that should be made?
Sometimes your business can rise above the knowledge of the CPA that you have. And the CPA may not be seeing how your business is transitioning now because he's too used to seeing how you did do it.
Right.
And so they can't see this new level of stuff.
That's a good way to put it. Really good way to put it. You know, and we try to, I tell clients, just like when I recruit people, right? If you're happy with your employer, don't leave your employer. And we tell clients that a lot, the prospective clients, if you're happy with your CPA, don't leave them. That's not what we want to do. But if there's some discomfort or there's some, hey, am I getting the right service? At least give us a shot. See what happens.
No, it's just like using a tile guy that just does floors, but he doesn't do backsplashes.
Right.
Or he doesn't do showers.
Right.
You're better off to use the guy that can do showers and backsplashes and everything.
Great.
Hey, I've enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
I'm really glad to meet you.
Absolutely glad to meet you.